perspective. Do you agree? Is it time to rock and roll?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, awesome. And I hope everyone can hear me okay. We've had
Yep.
a multitude of audio issues coming from my computer. So,
And are we taping this, I presume?
yes, we are. Everyone, just be aware that we're recording today's session so that we can refer back to this. We'll probably refer back to this many times in the upcoming months, in the upcoming years, maybe. This is the start of something pretty magical. Honestly, it's going to be really wonderful to see how far this grows and how far this reaches. So I want to take the opportunity here as we start to thank you for being willing to listen. I have to thank Aaron and his team members in Fredonia and the school system in Neodesha and Altoona. This is probably one of the first times that we've all come together as districts to pursue something I think pretty monumental, something very important, very timely, very significant, and not just as a professional endeavor, but I hope that this touches you personally. And as someone who has gone through this and has had the opportunity to experience this type of training, I can only tell you from that experience that my life has completely acknowledged and changed in a lot of different ways, even though I've always been kind of mindful of this health resiliency wellness stuff. So for me to be able to tell you that honestly and authentically, I just hope that that reaches you, and I want you to take this opportunity seriously for your teaching careers and to who you disseminate this information to, but also like internally, I hope that you take this and make the best use of this experience for your personal wellness, your personal well-being. So with that, I want to just briefly tell you I have the agenda up here to keep us on time, but feel free if and when the need arises that you need to go off camera for something, or if you need to excuse yourself, that's fine. Just signal to me that if you're off camera, that kind of makes us think that you are maybe away from your computer. And by having your screen on, that allows us to kind of see and engage in conversation just a little bit easier. It'd be wonderful to have this in person, but this is the next best thing, right? So I'll kind of get us going through introductions now, and then we'll go back to this agenda from time to time just to keep us on target. So, Aaron, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then I'm going to hand it off. We can hand it off to Dennis and then Dr. Yonke, and then we'll have everyone else introduce themselves, because this is, like I said, probably the first time we've been able to all do this, and I don't know everybody. So I'll be quiet now.
Okay, well, for those that don't know me, my name is Aaron Chard, and I am the Director of 21st Century Learning for the Fredonia School System, and also had the privilege of serving on the Stay Strong, Live Long Wilson County group, which is the originator of our being here today. Both Erica and Dennis shared in one of our meetings a health resiliency opportunity that they were going to hope to put in place at the Wilson Medical Center. And after all of us left the meeting, I sat back in my chair and thought, gee whiz, this would be good for our kids, great for our kids, and a good place to establish that foundation of health, wellness, awareness, and with it, resiliency. So kudos to them, and thank you for letting me be a part of that. And thank you, Erica, for all the help in the ensuing days. Our team is gathered here in one spot at the board office, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
So I met some of you. I'm Tim Woodcock. I'm the elementary principal, and like we've talked, very timely. Lots of stress this year in the school system. So this is very timely for all of us that are in education, for sure.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Wallace, and I am the district nurse.
Hi, I'm John Boss. I teach elementary physical education.
And that is Fredonia.
Great. Thank you guys and welcome. It's nice to meet everybody. Dennis, I will invite you to do your introduction.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dennis Shelby. My day job is CEO of Wilson Medical Center. As a point of introduction, this program is the result of COVID funding. Right as the pandemic started, Dr. Yankee had a video that was on his website that I watched, and it just hit me that this is what we need to help improve the health of Wilson County. This is what we need to help people be more virus resistant. And so we were able to get COVID funds to pay for the work that Dr. Yankee has been doing. You guys are pioneers. This has never been done before. I don't think there's any program like this in any school system in the country. And we all know that Wilson County's health status is not very good. The state strong live long program or group that Aaron and Erica and a number of people are on have been interested in what can we do to improve the health of our citizens. So those of you that are here to learn today, it's a first step. It's not just for the students. It's for you. It's for your family. It's for your neighbors. This is a movement. And I'm excited about this opportunity. We have seen some slight increases, improvement in our health status, but we have a long way to go. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Yankee and let him go next. Is that what we should do, or do we need to introduce other people?
We could let Dr. Yankee go, and then I'd love to get the Neodesha and Altoona Midway people introduced.
Okay.
So I'd like, Roger, this is you.
So anyway, I've known Dr. Yankee and his wife, Rebecca, for over 18 years. I received training in their creation of the Health Life coaching program and became a student and a coach under their program. They both have lived their lives to try to improve the health and well-being of people. And I'm just grateful that I met them so many years ago and that we've reconnected through this pandemic to make a difference in the lives of our folks here. So with that, Dr. Yankee, thank you for being a part of this and directing this program.
Yes, indeed. What a pleasure, Dennis. And thank you to you for your just sustained collegial connection all these years. And Rebecca and I think of you as a luminary among the people that we have trained in our Circle of Life life coaching methodology. And greetings, everyone. I'm very excited about this opportunity to work with you. We have been, the company that I work for is called Health Action, and it was founded in the 1980s. And it was based on the whole idea of what we're doing now. And we've been doing this work with agencies and institutions. Sometimes it's what we call the coaching side or the holistic life planning side. Sometimes it's more associated with the other part of the work that we do, which is called mind-body practice, which we will be weaving into this program as well. And the mission or the vision, well, the vision is always really a big idea. And what we think of as a vision is that everybody in the world has a right to be healthy. And it's true that circumstances in certain parts of the world where health is precluded by the lack of food. And that is something that we also are very committed to in supporting the development of agriculture, small organic agriculture throughout the world. But our focus is really on methodologies that people can use to lift themselves up from depression, pain, anxiety, chronic disease, and even to be resilient in the face of infectious disease. And so this program that we're doing with you all here, the Health Resiliency Maximization Program, is based on this simple idea that there are things that people can do that have no cost. I mean, in certain cases, maybe there's a small cost, like let's just talk about nutrition for a moment. The difference between the cost, and we'll talk more about it in a few minutes, difference between the cost of junk food or cheap, what we consider to be cheap food. Maybe you've noticed cheap food is not cheap, and junk food is not cheap, and really healthy food is also not expensive. And so we'll talk more about that later. The point is that we feel a great sadness and a heavy weight of the fact that citizens have been, I'm going to use the word seduced, first seduced and then habituated to the idea that there's nothing that they can do for their health, and that it's all, you just have to wait until you're sick, and then you can go to a doctor, and then if you're really lucky, you live in an environment where you get health care for the job that you have, or you're on Medicaid or whatever. And that's only just what we call intervention, medical intervention. What about a health intervention? That's what we're doing here. We want to we want to do an intervention on communities to help people realize that they have been seduced and then habituated into the idea that they can't do much for their health. And we're going to use a program called the 8 Pillars of Health Resiliency Maximization to reflect that. And as a part of my introduction, I'll just say, I think I said this in an email, that we work with the Veterans Administration, with the military, with lots of social service agencies, with many, we've trained people in school systems throughout the United States, Canada, Mexico, and more. And the last thing I'll say, just as a part of my introduction, is that if we really think about it, think deeply about it, what is it that a person who's contributing to the sustainability of a society is doing? What is it that a person who's contributing to the sustainability of the society, what is that person doing? Well, they're contributing. And think to yourself, how many of the people do you know need help? And who's going to help them? Well, they have to be helped by people who have enough energy, time, and resources to be helpful. And to a certain extent, every person in the United States has a right to maximize themselves, to be more resilient, to have more energy. And then they can contribute that to themselves by being more productive and having more fun. And they can contribute at their work by being more focused and having more sustainable energy throughout the day. And they can contribute to their family by being someone who's well enough to do what family members do. They can contribute to their family by helping the people who are not that well to get more well. And we're also contributing to our community. When we develop a language, like just look at those 2 words at the top of the page there, nourishment and hydration. Most people don't talk like that. And so instead of saying, just food, because food can be anything that comes in a plastic bag with a lot of sugar and other inflammatory factors. But nourishment isn't just any kind of food, it's nourishing food. And nourishing food multiplies the capacity of function. And when we're functioning at a higher level, then all the things that I talked about, the contributions can be made. Same with hydration. You know, who says hydration? And in a few moments, we're going to be talking about some of the fine points, just simple, easy to communicate fine points about hydration. The final point that I want to make here is that healthy people contribute to healthy families. Healthy families contribute to healthy communities. Healthy communities contribute to healthy regions. Healthy regions contribute to healthy states. Healthy states contribute to a healthy nation. And healthy nations contribute to justice and equality and peace and opportunity in the whole world. So your little microcosm in Kansas is now the nexus, the center, the core of something that can ripple on the pond of the human race everywhere in the world, because when you succeed, others will take note. And when they succeed, all that I've just described comes to fruition. One more point on that is that this is actually granted to us. All of this is granted to us by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And so let me just say a little bit about that. In the Declaration of Independence, it guarantees self-determination. Every citizen is considered to be equal and granted certain rights that cannot be taken away. And the foundation of those rights is what we call self-determinism. So in other words, we determine the outcomes of our lives through our behaviors, the knowledge that we gather, and how we build communities. And in the Constitution, it says, in order to create a more perfect union. And how, if it's a union, in other words, if it's not just a political system, but it's actually a union of all the citizens in that nation, how do you create a more perfect union? Well, you have to have productive, clear-minded citizens. And so we are encouraged to be productive and clear-minded citizens. And when that's all in place, personal view now, that's what I call patriotism. When we do everything that we can to protect the values of our nation, we are a patriot. And that's just like, wow. So not only am I helping myself and having more energy, but I'm actually a part of what it means to be a patriot in my country. That's stunning. And so anyway, I'm very, very, very excited to be here. And I'm here because you're here and interested. And so I want to say sincerely, thank you so much.
That was wonderful. You could literally leave it at that, and it gets like kind of those awesome feelings of just the momentum and the magnitude of how far this could reach is just super exciting and inspiring. And I hope you all just stay tuned and go along with us for the journey. But before we get too far in, I want to take this chance. I want to get to know, I want Kim, if you could just say a little bit about who you are, and I'm going to give you the chance to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kim Reason. I am the principal at Altoona Midway Elementary.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you so much for being here. And Christina, would you mind unmuting and telling and everyone in the room there, give them a chance to say hello too?
Hi, I'm Christina McClary, a fourth grade teacher at North Lawn Elementary in Neodesha and the chair of the Wellness Committee. And I have two others here with me. Hi, I'm Karen Orr, the elementary PE teacher.
Hello, I'm Kari Truscott, and I'm the K through 6 USD 461 school nurse.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so before we dive into like the knowledge portion of the training today, I want to give you a little heads up, a little precursor into what you're going to be utilizing, things that you can reference. This training goes far beyond a 2-hour Zoom session. It goes far beyond just like looking at something and kind of throwing it into your mind and then bringing it back later. I think it's something, these elements are something that you'll be able to utilize when you're off screen, when you're out of the office, when you're in the office, things that you could utilize all the time. So this second line item on here is a toolkit reference. And we're designing this, I'm trying to design this portal of materials that you will be able to utilize, one of which is the circle, which I've sent you today. We're going to probably reference that at the end of the video, and that's going to give you just a glimpse at the other elements that will be kind of introduced as we cultivate the conversations and as we go through this process. So know that a toolkit is going to be housed on an online portal. You will be given access to this portal. I'm envisioning Google Docs, Excel stuff, all the things of which you all are very familiar with anyways, but that'll give you the opportunity to use what you want and when you want it. So that I hope you all had the chance to at least print off that circle, because I think we'll have time to utilize just one of the many documents that we'll have for you to in these sessions. I already hit a little bit on the Zoom etiquette. Please feel free to stand up. Dr. Yankee does a wonderful he has a wonderful technique of inviting us to stop and breathe or stand and move or drink and hydrate. But please do that on your own willingness. And he does a really great job of intersecting moments when we all, like me, need to like take a deep breath every once in a while. And then I'm going to, before heading over to Erin here, I just want to tell you that part of that toolkit, there's this guidebook. It's manual-esque in its delivery, but it's going to be designed as we go and as we move through the training sessions, because you all are the experts on how this is going to be disseminated and used for your students and your youth. And what we have and what Dr. Yankee has provided are like language uses and language techniques, familiar language that you and I would talk to each other most likely with, but I don't think it's going to be how you want to use it for the kids. And that's why we need you as ambassadors to be willing to say, hey, in this guidebook, what if we used this word? What if we phrased it? What if we implemented it this way? And so as a guidebook and manual to reference, that'll be part of that toolkit that we'll utilize and invite you to help us massage and get it to the way we want it to be utilized for implementation to the kids. So Erin, would you mind just reiterating the important fact about the Pathways Grant before we get too deep here?
Well, the major important fact for wellness committees in each of the districts is that by virtue of this training and our efforts, we will, on state reporting, move from developing or implementing, whichever you might be, to modeling, which is all the way across on the rubric. We will need each of the districts next fall to mark modeling in that area to satisfy a grant requirement. And really, that's why we're all here today. After visiting with superintendents, we all felt one of the pathways, well, let me go back to the very beginning. I mentioned in my email earlier, the Stay Strong, Live Long group was successful about a year ago in being awarded a multiple hundreds of $1,000s grant for the county to address our wellness ranking throughout the state. We are in the bottom 10 counties very solidly. And how to best address that. Education is a pathway. And so each of the 3 superintendents of district schools agreed that we would combine efforts, begin at the elementary education level with our physical education programs, cultures within the buildings. So maybe internal team competitions or classroom competitions or whatnot. But in order to make that happen, we needed access to the material. And so we're here to be trained. After the training, as Erica alluded to, we will develop a common framework to instruct our students at primarily the elementary level first in wellness education and wellness resiliency. And our hope is to then grow that as they progress through their years. And by the time they are graduating our systems and becoming more functional adults in our communities, that these wellness principles will be ingrained in them to the point that it affects our overall wellness, not only individually, but as communities. Is that what you wanted?
That was perfect. Kind of reiterates why we're all here. And that gives us kind of a glimpse that this Pathways grant is so large, and it's just a nice complement to what Dr. Yonke has provided us. The simple things that we can do to move the needle and move into that modeling-esque type of role model for not only like Wilson County, but this is like what Dr. Yonke said. It's a ripple effect of a pond that is much bigger than just what we're seeing here today. So thank you, Aaron. As I stop share for a second, we're going to start to go into the knowledge portion. But before I do that, does anyone have anything to add? Does anyone have anything that they would like to share before we get into 2 of the pillars? Anybody, anything? Looks like everybody seems muted, so that's a good sign that we can move on. Here's kind of where it gets a little tricky. Aaron is going to share his screen. And Aaron, tell me if I need to do anything. I think I've got you as the host here. So yay, there it is. Okay, so you can sit back, relax, let this kind of massage into your brain and enjoy. It's about 25 minutes or so. And we'll let it rip.
Let's go to the movies.
Yeah, get your popcorn, unsalted. Aaron, if you could just unmute yourself so we can hear through the speaker.
Unfortunately, by most of the evidence that people see in their lives on television, the media, and so forth, there's no real invitation to do this.
Should be over here.
To explore health, resiliency, potential. And it's tragic. And so we are in the process of doing something about this by having created the 8 pillars of health resiliency maximization. And these 8 pillars are based on things that people can do for themselves for no cost. So I'm going to show some slides, some PowerPoint slides, and off we go. So today's content is on nourishment and hydration. And so we'll just launch into it. The program today is a little longer than usual because it's got some introductory concepts with it. Fellow citizens, we are called to learn about our natural health capacities. It's a kind of patriotism. And just take a moment to think about that. What is patriotism? Patriotism is protecting something that one values. And who doesn't value health and well-being? Who doesn't value personal productivity? And so it's pretty easy for us to believe and you'll see through this program, take action on being more well and helping others to be more well and getting excited about it and having it be a part of how we do something for ourselves, for our families and our communities. And one of the most powerful things that the humans have ever known, and for some reason we've forgotten, is that the most profound medicine is produced within us. It's a natural capacity that was architected into our being by the architect of the universe, God, the divine source. And that medicine is produced through our own intention, and it has no cost. So what is this topic, health resiliency? It comes under many titles. Healthy lifestyle over there on the left, and that kind of interesting little picture. Healthy living, disease prevention, health promotion, wellness, health resiliency, self-care. So you're invited to use the words that seem the most appropriate for you to describe what we're doing. And when you're describing it to other people, you can use words that are more aligned with the way they think. And this is just a short list of words that you could use, and you may want to investigate other options. So the 8 pillars of sustainable well-being that we can cultivate for ample and optimal health capacity. This is a very well thought out program that we've developed through collaboration with numerous people in your community. And these are all things that people can do for no cost. And so let's just jump right in. Nutrition, hydration, that means drinking water. Rest, that means sleep. Activity, that means exercise. Breath practice, we're breathing all the time, but we can modify the breath to activate healing resources within our own being. Managing stress, which really means to be purposeful in how we approach our life so that we're not just habitually repeating stress responses. That's very powerful. We'll get into that in future lessons. And then self-awareness, the whole concept of the mind and how we can pay attention to and cultivate our own mind. So, wow, I tend to be very upbeat about all of this. And so that's where the wow. This is an amazing time to educate and empower yourself. And as people who are going to be ambassadors in your community, that what we mean is this is a phrase that you can use. Everything in this training is for you. So when you say the most profound medicine is produced within our own being, that's for you to say to the people in your community. When we say being a healthier person is a kind of patriotism, that's a thought for you to use. When we say different words that you can use to describe what you're doing, that's me and our team working on the process of supporting you and developing language that seems appropriate to the people that you'll be speaking with. So sharing is very powerful. And so ambassadors, our coaches and so forth, and we want to be sharing these ideas with our friends, family, coworkers, other people in our community. And the intention is to create a kind of a revolution or a transformation in the community from the level of health status that exists today to the level of health status that could exist. And this is all based on the fact that the most important things that we can do to sustain health and cure disease are things that we can do ourselves. So today we're going to look at nourishment and hydration. There's a training manual in which there's more detail on this, but as you can see from this image, that the largest amount of the nourishment that we want to intake is the highest quality. And that's the part at the bottom that's referred to as water, non-starch vegetables, spices and herbs. And so look at all of those vegetables that are there. And you know, we have, for whatever reason in our culture, gotten attuned to foods that are less nourishing, but foods that are more nourishing, it just depends on our goal. You know, do we want to be a more vital person? And of course, the answer is yes, of course I want to be a more vital person. Well, then there may be some choices that we can make to modify that. And notice at the tippity top, there are recreational treats. Well, a lot of people kind of live on recreational treats. But the point is that recreational treats have no nutrition, and so they don't really do anything for supporting the amplifying of function. So let's define healthy food. Foods that provide nutrients needed to sustain the body's functional well-being and contribute energy for dynamic living, which includes low glycemic carbohydrates, that's the non-starchy vegetables, fat. There's healthy fat. One of the most difficult concepts for people to get a feeling for is the fact that eating the right kind of fat does not make a person fat. What it does instead is that it provides nutrition to make all kinds of very important body chemistry. Protein, vitamins, and minerals are all key nutrients that make up a healthy, balanced diet. Now, a big issue is the glycemic, or the intake of sugar. And notice that there's an arrow down at the bottom that says, take note. And under the vegetables, look at the glycemic index. That means the, shall we say, harmful and inflammatory factors are associated with a high glycemic index, and healing foods are associated with a low glycemic index. So look at the column under vegetables, and then go over to bagels and white bread, and notice the massive difference. This is a really big deal, and most people are, of course, addicted to sugar. And then we really are talking not so much about how accessible is good food, but more how addicted we are to not good food. Unfortunately, it's not good news. People say, well, what kind of nutrition should I be focusing on? And probably the most common way to say this is anti-inflammatory nutrition, because inflammation causes all kinds of difficult health challenges and inflames everything from diabetes to arthritis and more. And so we want to be looking at anti-inflammatory nutrition as a kind of baseline. The Mediterranean diet is an anti-inflammatory diet. The diet that humans ate before we began to develop commerce is generally anti-inflammatory and based mostly on vegetables. And The big study done on the Chinese diet, which is pretty close to the Mediterranean diet, which is the eating local foods that are grown in there and eating them in their natural season and so forth. There's a lot to be known about nutrition. Ambassadors of health can be teachers, but mostly they're people who help individuals to understand that some of their assumptions about the way we live may be false, and look for ways to be able to generate enthusiasm around the whole idea of shifting our choices. So here's a myth. Eating healthy food is prohibitively expensive. And actually, it turns out that on a per person basis, for an adult, so this isn't even really for children, and so think of a household of 2 adults and 2 children, the cost for a person to eat better for a day is about $1.50 more than eating junky foods. But then think of the extent to which a person who's well can produce income. It's just one thought about that. And if a person who's well can produce more productive, more creative, more motivated, then is it possible that they could earn enough to be able to pay for the fact that they're going to eat more nutritious food? Yeah, it's just worthy of our consideration. Hydration, water, drinking water. So, we know the body is a large percent water. And this is common, everybody knows that. And then, so where does that water come from? And how can we be sure that we are hydrated to the extent that the highest level of functional capacity is naturally within reach? Water regulates body temperature, moistens the tissues in the eyes, the mouth, even in the joints. We have fluids in the joints. There's a fluid that the brain is sitting in, cerebrospinal fluid, is throughout the entire nervous system. It's very powerful fluid. Water protects the body, organs, and tissues. And water carries nutrients and oxygen to the cells. So that's huge. That's basically the foundation of almost everything about function depends on having enough water. And then the question is Coke and coffee and tea and fruit beverages, are those water? And I'll just read. Soda and other caffeinated drinks contain caffeine, which is a diuretic. As a result, drinking soda can be dehydrating, same with coffee and tea. This can strain the body to find sources of water, which puts a good deal of stress onto the kidneys. Soft drinks usually contain high amounts of high fructose corn syrup, which is among the highest substances in the glycemic index that we were talking about earlier. So the key isn't should I or shouldn't I drink Coke? The key is, am I getting enough water? Certainly, most people in the United States probably drink more soda, caffeinated sodas, or high sugar sodas than is good for their health. We know that, but I don't think it's going to be very useful to say, hey, you can't drink sodas and you shouldn't be drinking coffee and tea. It's a part of our culture to do that. So then the question is, well, what can we do to assure that the people that we're working with understand that Coke and coffee and tea and fruit beverages are not water. They're not the water that we need. Same with the juices. When juices of fruits and vegetables are prepared fresh at home, like with a juicer, they are a food and not generally considered to contribute to hydration like water does. Commercial juices, especially fruit juices, usually contain high amounts of high fructose corn syrup, which is among the highest substances in the glycemic index ratings. So again, we're not so much saying that people shouldn't drink fruit beverages or commercial vegetable beverages. What we're saying is that those commercial beverages are going to have a lot of sugar in them, which is super inflammatory. So the idea isn't don't do this. The idea is that when you are drinking these types of beverages, just understand that it's not necessarily contributing to your hydration. And so I want to separate hydration from these ideas so that people are clear on the value of having water. Got my water right here. And so there's the content on hydration and nutrition. Now let's just think for a moment about the opportunity that we're working with here. The most profound medicine is produced within our own being for no cost. How powerful is that? We are called to empowerment, personal empowerment, through learning, self-awareness, and cultivation. Learning, self-awareness, and cultivation are required, as well as action. To put these ideas into action goes to making choices. That's why we have ambassadors, and so we can develop a language in the community and then have facilitators or ambassadors who remind people to stay in the conversation about being healthier people, because who wouldn't want to be more healthy? We don't want to have to shame people into being more healthy. We want to be able to support people in wanting to become more healthy because they want that and they see the benefit of that. So use the health resiliency practices on a daily basis and believe, this is so powerful, to believe in our inherent health sustainability powers. That's like our faith. We know that the highest force in the universe, God or the architect of the universe, has imbued humans with certain unalienable rights. It's part of the Declaration of Independence. So what are those rights? Well, one of those rights is to be healthy and happy. And how do you do that? Well, you can't buy health and happiness. You can only cultivate health and happiness. And given God granted these amazing powers for self-healing, why would we neglect to use them? It just doesn't make any sense. So cultivating the power of health sustainability, amazing. And one of the most important things to do that is to share with others. As I said earlier, today's presentation is a little longer because it's introductory. I had this portion of the training will be shorter and briefer, so they have more time for discussion and practice. All right, well, let's practice now. So we're going to just do 1 minute self-care break. I'm going to start with having a drink of water. How much did that cost? Now let's do breath practice, and then we'll have a little more water. And the breath practice simply goes like this. People say, well, I'm breathing all the time. What do you mean breath practice? Well, I mean, how about longer, slower, deeper? Longer, slower, deeper. So let's just do that now. Big breath in, slowly. Exhale very slowly. over time, and we'll just continue with that. Big breath in. Over time, you will realize, exhale slowly, as you pay deeper and more attention to yourself in a deep way, you'll notice that the internal sensibility changes as we do this breath practice for just 4 or 5 times. Breathe in slowly. Exhale very, very slowly. We're probably going to go a little bit more than 1 minute. This is the last one now. Big breath in. Now hold for just a moment. Now exhale very slowly and see if you can get that feeling of something changing within you. That's the medicine within. Take just a moment to notice what you're feeling. Breathe normally. Because I do this on a regular basis, I already feel a major change happening within my body just by taking 4 deep, slow, relaxed breaths. All right, here's to you. Another drink of water. This is 16 ounces, by the way. 8 ounces is about half, so it's 4 of these a day. All right, so there we go. The first 2 parts of things that people can do for little to no expense. They have a lot to do with how the body functions efficiently. All right, wish you well, and we'll get together again soon, I'm sure. And thank you so much for your interest in this work.
That was awesome. Sorry if I had a couple people say that the volume, I think just having a YouTube video play throughout somebody's computer system, it does decrease the sound a little bit, but hopefully you were able, the most important part is this: you knew everything that he was saying, but the practicing and the listening and thinking about how this could improve your own life, that's what really matters. Giving yourself the time to even educate and think through how are you being nourished? How are you nourishing yourself, your family? Are you drinking enough water? How can we drink more? How can we, that's kind of what we're going to do next, is kind of explore and create that dialogue about how we can just improve ourselves, and by improving ourselves, that ripple effect will hopefully improve all of our lives. So let's see here.
Erica,
Yeah.
just a quick interruption.
Absolutely.
I want to be sure to make a point here, 2 points. One is that, as you said, we already know these things. So the health resiliency maximization program that we're participating in isn't necessarily to give you new knowledge. I mean, you might see that some of what that knowledge session was about, might have reminded you of something that you already knew but didn't pay too much attention to, or it may have even been a kind of unique little nugget that you have that you've never heard of. But the core of this program isn't about the knowledge; it's about the implementation. And so let's just talk a moment about how something is normalized into a culture or a community. So the last thing that we want to do is create a context where people realize that all the shall we say mistakes that they're making are brought to the surface. So in other words, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you drinking more water? You're a loser, whatever that might be. that gets us nowhere. And and you might even apply this to yourself. When you think to yourself, okay, now I'm the ambassador, I'm going to be talking to people about these things, and their immediate default for most people is going to be, oh, you're so smart and you know all about it, and I'm the person who's the loser, and I don't want to have this discussion, and goodbye. And so what can we do to create a context that builds these ideas that are inexpensive and have powerful influence on our function? We have to go in the direction of not what's wrong with you, but what's right with you. And every person has something that they do in their lives that is kind of like the area where they're a little stronger. Sometimes it's being productive, sometimes it's being creative, sometimes it's the kind of work that we got that we just absolutely love, and we're just so at home in the work that we have. Some people are lucky to have certain genetic contributions that mean that, they just like it's falling off a log for them to have plenty of energy and so forth. So the goal is to be able to help the people who are under your ambassadorship, if you know what I mean, to um, start to frame all of this, not so much as I have to do this and I have to do that, but it's more like I want the prize. I want the prize. I want the health. I want the resiliency. I want the energy. I want the clear mind. I want the focus. I want to be able to get the rest that makes it possible for me to get through my day and have some time left in the day when I still have some energy to be able to, read something and remember what it was, or even create something like, write poetry, or if you got the extra time at the end of the day, it's kind of like winding down energy. But if you figure out how to churn this whole process so that you have enough energy that you can do something extra, you put it at the beginning of the day. Wow, that's a really amazing experience. Get up a little earlier, do a little exercise, do some gardening, prepare some of the things that you're going to put into your dinner before you go to work, so that when you get back, you can rip it out and everybody's happy. So the ambassador's job is less about teaching people things that they don't know, and more about creating a community in which this kind of language arises. So now we're at the water cooler. We talk about the conversation at the water cooler. So when you get to the water cooler and say, instead of saying like, how about those chieftains or whoever it might be that you're rooting for, you could say, hey, Betty Lou, oh, what part of the 8 pillars are you working on these days? And how is it feeling to you? So now it's not even coming from the ambassador, it's coming from somebody else in the society. And so that's what we mean by normalize or socialize. If we can move these ideas from esoteric, challenging ideas into being fantastic opportunities for having a better life for myself and everybody in my community, and then raise that conversation into normal exchanges among people, that's bingo. That's bingo right there. So yes, just wanted to be sure that you understand these knowledge sessions aren't to teach you something you don't know. They're to support you in understanding the pillars so that you can use the health resiliency maximization methodologies, including communication and some of the tools that we're going to be exploring now, to drive these concepts into the culture. Erica, back to you.
Great segue into the latter portion of our training, and our opportunity to kind of dissect what we just, we do know these things, but this gives us a chance in this next hour or less than that to kind of divulge in conversation and to talk about the circle and the diagram, which I'll share. Does anybody feel like it's a good opportunity to take a quick stand up break? Do you guys need away from your computer for a second? Take five, and return here at 2:10. And then in the meantime, I'll kind of shift my screen over into the circle diagram so that you guys have a chance to see that. Hopefully it's printed out in front of you.
Excellent. Take 5.
Okay, take 5. We'll meet here back in a few. All right, looks like we've got a few people that are still off, and that's totally fine. I'm hoping that my volume is coming across okay and that you can see the circle on the screen. Awesome. Thanks, Christine.
Yes to both.
Yay. Thank you, guys.
Part of the volume problem, we think we have that fixed for future. I connected to the Apple TVs in here, which
Pushes the sound through
pushes
the
the
television.
sound through the television, and it was good for us, but I was unaware that.
Oh, that's okay. I don't want. I knew that you were like looking at your phone. Well, you were being a good steward and not looking at your phone. It's okay. It's all right. Like I
Yeah,
said,
it sounded okay.
good.
From now on, we'll just all join via computer and not go through that. So.
Sure. Sure. That's understandable. I didn't get myself a chance to print off like my own circle, so I'm gonna I have that coming, but if you guys want to grab that, Dr. Yonke, do you feel like it's when everybody does come back, should we go through just the 8 sectors and kind of cue us when to shade in and how to shade, how we measure our ranking of those pillars?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that, and want to be sure that you, Aaron, and you, Erica, and Dennis as well. Our big goal, of course, is to have what I would say now be said by one of you rather than me.
Sure.
Because we want to get it into the community as soon as possible. But absolutely, yep.
Yeah, I'll caveat. I'll kind of like
That's
play piggyback off of you. If and Dennis and Aaron, I would absolutely love for you guys to kind of share in the breakdown process of these 8 different elements. It's kind of interesting how I rank myself in this process kind of differently every time based on whatever you're saying or what you're cueing me. It just goes in, a different way, and sometimes your questions prompt me to think a little differently about the element. So I've written down a couple of cues myself, so I'll just piggyback off of you if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. All right. So let's see. Dennis is the CEO. I mean, he could have been called off to anything. So
True.
everybody else here?
I believe so.
Oh, we lost our friend, the principal.
Oh yeah, she did send me a message. She's
okay. I saw the head of one principal pop into Aaron's screen. That's good. By the way, I'm so honored to have the principal of the school to actually set aside this time. That is just fantastic and really points to the prioritization of this kind of an effort. And regarding the pathway grant, it sounds like in a way you're kind of in a contest, which is exciting, with all these other recipients. So it's the Olympics, the wellness Olympics. I really like that.
That's a good way to look at it. It's honestly like a huge privilege to have the grant and then at the same time have the COVID funding to complement the work that the Pathways is doing. I mean, really, if you looked at the dollar amount combined between the 2 projects and the expertise in the room, I mean, it's just pretty monumental. It's pretty big. It's pretty awesome.
Yep. So what do you think? Are we still missing somebody?
I think we should rock and roll. What do you think, Aaron?
I think we're all here.
Okay, good.
Should we start with nourishment and obviously hydration since we're most familiarized?
Allow me to just kind of ramble on how this goes. So the concept is, and maybe you as wellness people, you may be aware of something called a health risk appraisal. And a health risk appraisal usually asks you a bunch of questions about an aspect of your life. And it takes a while to do it. And then you can't remember which one you gave the grade to and so forth. And for the purposes of our work, both in our Circle of Life life coaching program And this health resiliency maximization program that we are now developing with your help, we don't ask 10 questions. We just ask one question, and basically the easiest way to verbalize this question is regarding your nourishment. How satisfied are you? Now, to drill down into the sort of granular aspect of satisfied, it's kind of interesting because we could say, well, I'd be satisfied to just not have to talk about it. So I'm going to say, I give it a high score because I don't even want to think about this in the presence of another person. It's too intense. It's too embarrassing. I know I have a horrible diet. I don't want to talk about it. So one way to get out of having a conversation is simply say, I'm totally satisfied. Let's go on. Another kind of satisfaction is that you've set your sights high in your life and you know that nourishment is a part of how that works. And so you're going to give yourself a lower score because you feel like this is an area that you could really improve, and that it would be a kind of a high magnitude win to focus on this area and make progress in this area. Another way to look at satisfaction is, am I informed? In other words, do I know enough? And so that kind of score would have to do with if a person's not feeling informed and they don't know it, they don't feel that they know enough, to suggest to give a lower score, because this would be a great area to learn something and take some actions in. And so it's just the same with hydration. Am I satisfied with my hydration? Well, if the model is somewhere between 6 and 8 glasses, 4-ounce glasses, 8-ounce glasses of water every day. And what I used to think was that my coffee intake was contributing to my hydration. And now I know that coffee is actually on overall dehydrating. Wow, I'm going to have to figure out how to, maybe I take a sip of my coffee. Actually, I'm drinking, I'm drinking tea out of a little tiny cup here today. So what am I doing to balance that out? Well, I'm drinking water too. And so I'm going to get my 8 glasses, or my 6 to 8 glasses, 4-ounce glasses, which is a half of this, is 4 ounces. I'm going to get that by drinking this, and then I'm going to get whatever I like to get out of tea, which is, there's a little caffeine in tea, so I'm hydrating to counteract that. And also, tea has a lot of micronutrients and the kinds of things that we would take vitamins for. And one of the things that's in tea is a lot of antioxidants. So now, and you've probably read all the very positive research on coffee. So, we used to think in the wellness trade, coffee, caffeine, you're wearing down your kidneys and so forth. But it turns out that having a little coffee every day is really, really not a bad idea, according to immense amounts of research. But coffee is not hydration. It's something else. It's like nutrients. And the same with, so then you have to ask the question, okay, so knowing what I know about hydration, how satisfied am I? Am I very satisfied because I actually do 6 to 8 glasses of water a day? Or am I dissatisfied because I want to have the benefit, but I haven't accomplished that yet? And of course, the same thing about, what about knowledge? Do I know enough? If I feel like I don't know enough, then I'm going to give myself a low satisfaction score because I'm not satisfied that I know enough. And then that goes all the way around. So as you're, over the next couple of minutes, I'll say a little something about each one of these segments. And while I'm doing that, you can use crayons or pencils or pens, or you can just write a number, put a circle around it, of how satisfied you are with each of these segments. And we've already talked about nourishment and we've already talked about hydration. So now let's talk about rest. And, you already may feel like, okay, I got these all down, score, done. And you can just sort of listen out of the side of your ear about what I'm saying. Rest, it turns out, or sleep, turns out to be among the most powerful medicines that exists in the world. And you cannot buy a bottle full of sleep. You can only actually figure out how to get sleep. And many people are not doing well with their sleep. And so now the question becomes, how can I change that? What can I do to make a change in that? And oh my, there are so many things that can be done to change our sleep. And the coach doesn't tell people what they should do. The ambassador doesn't tell people what to do. The ambassador invites the person that they're working with or the group that they're working with to share among themselves about how they work on getting better sleep. So I'm a doctor, so I can tell people all kinds of stuff about how to get better sleep. But many of those things have to do with pharmaceuticals that have uh, side effects that are not that attractive, including feeling not very well the next day and now we've got to tank a bunch of coffee to be able to get going. Okay, so it's okay to drink coffee, but then, you know what I mean. And it just spirals in the direction of I'm not rested. By the time I get to the middle of the day, particularly if I have bread for lunch, this is for me, oh my gosh, when I realized how uh, the sandwich that I was eating for lunch was like a drug, like a Haldol or something that would, put you into a pain-free state, but also not very able to negotiate what I was doing in the afternoon. And so now I need more coffee. And this is one of the negatives about coffee, because if your adrenals aren't producing enough energy to be able to get you through the afternoon, then the reason you're drinking the coffee isn't for the antioxidants, it's for the caffeine. And eventually you can wear yourself out. And people can end up being unable to sleep because they're needing to drink coffee too late in the day. So anyway, rest is very important. How satisfied are you with your rest? Movement. Maybe you know that the new smoking is sitting. In other words, how dangerous is it to smoke? Very dangerous. Well, now it's been found that it's that dangerous to sit without moving around. So sometimes we can move while we're sitting, and at some point in our training, we'll do some movements where you move your arms and you adjust your posture and deepen your breath and so forth. We'll call those mind-body practices. And but it's really the best if you get up and move. Now, a person might say, well, I can't get up because I have pain. Whoa, that's a problem. So how are we going to be able to do some movement that doesn't cause pain? Well, there are lots of movements that you can do. And people make the mistake of thinking that the only kind of movement that counts is when I go to the gym. Not true. Moving the body, even if you're sitting, and there's a lot of kinds of programs for people in wheelchairs, movement programs for people in wheelchairs that, like, for instance, Tai Chi sitting in a chair can be done. And it's very popular and very effective. And there's lots of research on that. Yoga in a chair, or calisthenics in a chair, hold some weight, move your arms around, deepen your breath. So the highest level of movement, of course, is going to be some kind of exercise, and getting out into nature and taking a brisk walk is just fine. You don't need to have a special outfit and gym membership. You know, if your school system gives you a free membership to a gym or something like that, well, use it, of course, but don't get caught in the mythology about how you have to be healthy to get healthy. That's wrong. You're allowed to be deficient in any way and then aspire to be more well and use movement as a part of how you do that. And how many of us are going through a grocery store pushing a grocery cart? Could you link your breathing and deepen your breath and lengthen your posture and push your grocery cart a little faster? Yes, you can. And so there's a lot of ways to do movement and exercise. So how satisfied are you with your exercise? Breathing. The we all think, well, I'm already breathing. Like, what's the problem? Well, the problem is that breathing at the pace that we usually breathe is enough to survive and navigate through the world, but is not empowering, it's not healing, and it's not energizing. It's just sufficient for staying alive. Now, why did the architect of the universe decide to program human beings so that they only breathe at the level of their survival? I don't know. The God is ineffable. We can't know. We know that the presence of divine forces are always with us. We know that, but we can't tell whether maybe God likes to tinker with people and give them opportunities to discover. And isn't it interesting if we do discover the power of breathing, when you look into it, oh my gosh, it is an incredible tool. And there are many, many, many benefits of deeper breathing that you can do without going anywhere. Like, could we take a deep breath now? Could I be computing? Could I be texting? By the way, texting, don't bend over to text, sit up to text. Some people say the best way to do texting is to lie on your bed and do texting, because when you lie on your bed and do texting, you're putting a curve in your spine that goes this way. Whereas when you're doing texting like this, you're putting a curve in your spine that goes this way. It's the curve in your spine that goes this way, that is the healing curve. And this is the depreciating curve. So a lot to be known about. And by the way, when you're leaning over like this, imagine you're in your car and you've set your mirror so you're now slumped down driving along, and you think to yourself, oh, I can take a deep breath right now. Well, you can't take a deep breath right now because there's no space. But if you sit up and change the mirror in your car to be more erect, now when you realize when you need to take a deep breath in your car, when you would benefit from taking a deep breath in your car, you can actually do it because you've got more space for your lungs to fill slowly. Let's take a deep breath right now. Big deep breath in and a very slow exhalation. When we talk about the breath section, we'll talk more about it, but how can you reflect on how is your breath, how satisfied are you with your understanding of breath and your utilization of the breath as a health maximizing tool? That's the number we want. Stress mastery. Very, very simple way of saying this, and it's written in the guidebook that you have had a look at or you're going to have a look at. Stress isn't the thing that's in you. That's the reaction to stress. So think to yourself about stressors. So let's just say somebody's acting out in your life and they're making you feel miserable in some way or another, or you're anxious about your relationship with them. That's all a kind of contraction, a worry. And that worry weighs on your nervous system and the functionality of yourself. And so how are you doing in your stress mastery? we're not asking the question, how much stress is in your life? Not asking that question. I mean, if you want to change the amount of stress in your life, you'll have to change your life. But without making a big change in your life, you can change how you manage your stress or how you master stress. So, do you know enough about stress mastery? And do you have tools that you actually use on a regular basis to accomplish what you want to accomplish? Give yourself a score here, not so much based on are you a wizard, but your satisfaction. You know, what do you need here and how does it work? And then self-awareness, very powerful. We know that people have thousands and thousands and thousands of thoughts a day. But did you know that 80% of those thoughts are repeats? In other words, we're just thinking the same thing over and over and over again. How about when you get a song in your mind? My wife says, do not tell me what song is in your mind, because it's gonna get into her mind, and off she'll go for, you know, a long time, just churning that song, which could be great or it might not be great, but it's kind of funny anyway. So what about how many of those repetitive thoughts are negative thoughts? It turns out that way over 50% of the thoughts that we are repeating are actually self-depreciating negative thoughts. Yeah, that's research based on thousands and thousands of people. And so what are we going to do about that? Well, the answer is pay attention to yourself, become more self-aware, and see if you can start to notice how often you say a positive thing to yourself. And then you can do this. You could say, I'm committed to saying positive things to myself. And you can set a thing on your phone, like how many appointments do you want to have with yourself to say something positive? How about 1,000? Well, okay, maybe you don't have time for 1,000, but how about 3, you know, throughout the day? Could you get your phone to set an alarm for a certain time? And in the amount of time that it takes you to press, I don't want to listen to this alarm anymore, you can think, okay, I agreed with myself to have a positive thought now. So I'm going to have it. And then you make up a positive thought and you have that positive thought on a regular basis. No matter what else is going on, your life is miserable. Nobody's cooperating. The world is collapsing. The hope for the possibility of, you know, somebody in your family is looking dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. Okay, so that's a part of what's going on. Now, is that everything about the world? Is that, you know, what you want to beat the drum of, raise the flag of, you know, toot the horn of, or do you want to have something else to toot the horn of? And so give yourself a 1 to 10 on how satisfied you are with your level of self-awareness. And then finally, relaxation techniques. Relaxation techniques are a whole array of types of things that you can do. And one of the most relaxing things that people can do is to develop appreciative prayer. Okay, so not everybody's into praying. So then we can say just having grateful thoughts. And as you know, the kind of prayer that we do when we're in despair is very different than the kind of prayer that we do when we're celebrating the just the absolutely unimaginable and profound nature of the universe. And so that's a kind of relaxation technique. Breath practice is a kind of relaxation technique. Movement is a kind of relaxation technique. But the point is that under relaxation techniques, what we're talking about is being purposeful enough to use self-awareness, the one we just talked about, to bring ourselves to where am I now? And would it be a benefit for me to do some kind of very, very simple relaxation technique that I've that I have learned or that I could learn? And the answer is yes, that is absolutely the way to go. And so now you've got a score for each one of these. And so the next thing that happens is that we look at which one is the highest score, because we want the ambassadors to be, shall we say, well, we want them to be the ambassadors of people taking, assessing their assets. Where's their greatest strength relative to the 8 pillars? So just check out the numbers, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Erica. And Erica, perhaps maybe you could just lead the process of everybody just saying 2 things. 1, what's your highest number? And 2, why do you think that's the strongest one for you? In other words, what in your life makes that, created the circumstances for you to have that one be rated at a higher score? Back to you.
That's a great idea. This circle is so simplified, and I can't help but think what's going through your mind as to how this will apply and be implemented to our like school kids. But for now, I definitely want to keep it personal because there's such a great benefit at assessing your assets. I have to try to say that a couple times to make it sound okay. So maybe we could just popcorn this, and I could yell out a name and provide me with that information. If you're willing to share, what was your highest element of the circle, and why or what have you been doing? By that sharing, I think we're going to be able to get into some good dialogue. So Dennis, I'll have you jump on. Could you tell us what your strength, what you would choose to share as your strength, and why?
Okay. When I go around looking at the circle, my highest score is rest. And I believe I would say the reason why that's a high score, I actually do have a medical condition, sleep apnea. And it was identified 10 years ago. And so I did not sleep. Rest was tough for me. I didn't get much rest because I stopped breathing during the night. So I've been faithful with my machine that I wear at night. The other reason is I go to bed to sleep, and the lady that I've lived with for almost 46 years does not do that. And she does other things in bed, like read, Facebook, TV, and things. And someone a long time ago, I don't know who it was, says, you need to go to bed to sleep, and you can do all those other things somewhere else. So that's why I don't do anything in bed except sleep. When it's bedtime or I'm tired, that's where I go. And that's why it's a high one for me.
I wish was one of my strengths. That's a good point. Christina, would you mind sharing? And the ladies in there, Kari and Karen, would you mind sharing your strengths?
Kari had to step away to take care of a nursing issue, but I have my will. I think my strengths are rest and nourishment, and I think because I focus more on them, the older I get, and aging and the things that happen to women with menopause, nourishment has become something I had to focus on changing. And looking at lower carbohydrate intakes and all those wonderful things that we fall in love with and make habits of through our lives, those things had to start changing for me to be healthy and control blood pressure and things like that. And then rest, I noticed that I don't sleep well if I don't focus on my habits going into rest. And nobody wants a cranky teacher through the day. So you have to kind of be game on when you hit the ground running in the morning as a teacher. So rest is when I focus on a lot.
Okay, mine's probably movement, and that because of my job. I am moving from 7:30 in the morning, and now since we're in softball till about 6:30 at night. Not tonight because it's ball game night. I'll be moving, until about probably 8:30, which that goes into my rest. When it's time to go to bed, my head goes down. Although I do kind of like, I go into my relaxation techniques, watching my Leave It to Beaver as I'm gearing down, and I might get through an episode and I'm out. So I feel good about that. So I'm ready to go the next day and move some more.
I bet when your head hits the pillow, it goes down. Lots of movement from you. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Aaron, how about you guys?
Okay, my highest score is in nourishment, and that is totally due to my wife. Well, I've been habituated, so that's my highest.
Mine was self-awareness. I don't know. I try to be aware of what's going on in my mind. I try to journal every morning or every other morning and reflect on the day and what's coming on that day. So that one's good. I've got a lot of work to do in some other areas.
Thanks for sharing, Lindsay.
Mine was rest. And that's also due to my family because they know if I don't get sleep, I maybe get a little cranky. And so they help me out with that. So it's a team effort.
John.
My highest by quite a bit is movement, and that's because I chose that career, and that makes it a lot easier to get it done when that's what you do.
Good stuff. Yeah, a lot of them, I feel like, don't you? A lot of the people in this room are prioritize movement. I bet a little bit more so just because of that affiliation with their careers, but they probably see the wonderful benefits that stem from movement too. So, Dr. Yonke.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that as we can see, there's a whole bunch of areas that are kind of gaps that if this was a coaching group or whatever we decide to call these gatherings, certainly the ambassador can be in a connection with a single person at a time. But then in a classroom, once this gets pushed down to teachers, let's just be with the teachers for a moment. When the ambassadors are with the teachers and we hear what is your strength and why, that's very powerful in itself, just to understand the kinds of choices that people make and notice that there are choices involved. And I like the idea that sometimes these choices get made because we're getting encouragement from our family. And other times these choices were made many years ago, like with John the Boss. I bet you've heard that before. It's kind of fun to say it though. He made a choice for a career in his life, and I kind of made the same sort of choice. I think to myself, why is it that I am relatively well? Well, it's because I chose to be a doctor who is the most interested, less interested in treating sick people and more interested in creating enthusiasm in people towards being more well. And so I am called upon in my career to be a model for that. And I love it. I do kung fu and all that kind of craziness. And, I run around and there's a forest nearby here. And so that's my natural strength. So part of what we're looking at then by going to the strength is that we're not going to, what is the part of this circle that you're not doing well in? We didn't go there. And in the end, we don't really ever have to go there. What we can do is the next step can be, well, knowing that you have this strength and the fact that it contributes to your well-being, what aspect of your life that is less high in a score do you feel like you can bring your attention to now? And so that's not asking the question, what was your lowest score? And that's not asking the question, what isn't working for you? That's only asking the question, how could you possibly, or what do you think you'd be interested, given the fact that we're in a group here, in maximizing? And imagine we're with the teachers now. So how many people would be resistant to saying, well, now that I've got a strength, I feel like I could reveal on something that I have an aspiration to conquer or to cultivate. And so it's nothing like a health risk appraisal, which basically in the end tells you how soon you're going to die from heart disease or the consequences of diabetes. But instead, it's an invitation further into victory and success and so forth. And part of how this will all work, and Erica's going to get the paperwork to you and so forth, is that we have something that in the coaching area we call the blueprint for success. And we'll probably be using that framework here as we go ahead. Now let's drive it down into the kids. So now the teacher is oriented to the whole idea of basing this process, this what looks like a learning process, into more like a community sharing process and a group supportive process. So the teacher says to the kids, here's the 8 things, and and then you read the guidebook, and many of the things that I said to you about the 8 areas, so that you could give yourself a score, are written in your guidebook or your training manual. And so you could just say what I said, or you can say anything else that you'd like to say, while the kids are thinking through, am I more like a 2 or a 3 or a 5 or a 7 or a 9 for this part of my life? And then the next thing that's very important to know is that it doesn't matter if we get it wrong. Some kids and even some teachers will say, well, I don't want to be seen as having a low score. I'm going to give myself a 9 on everything. But then later we realize this is a peaceful process. This is not a judgment-laden process. I'm not going to get a grade. Like, I'm not going to get an F. I'm only going to be learning. So when I gave myself a 9, which wasn't really true, who was I lying to? And in the end, I was really lying to myself and then sharing that lie with others. And the whole, shall we say, judgment system, the weight of the judgment system that comes down on a person for making a change, like when somebody says, hey, you were a 9 last week, now this time you've actually said you're more like a 6. Well, you could just say, the person can say, well, I thought about it. I reconsidered. I realized that I actually didn't know as much as I thought I knew. And so this is a system that you can't fail in. And so the invitation to look for an area that needs, where one could benefit from learning more or doing something different, revealing that becomes less and less pressurized as something that's wrong, and more elevated as an aspiration that can then be fulfilled with the help of all the people. So now the teacher's saying to the kids, well, okay, so, Jeremy, what's your, what is the area that you want to put some focus on? And Jeremy says, well, I think it'd be kind of interesting for me or whatever to focus more on the water thing. So then the teacher says to all the other kids, you know, what do you know about how you do water that Jeremy could do? So now it's like it's a cheering session to help Jeremy navigate to, it's just some very casual, collegial, fun classroom dialogue, which teachers know how to do, about how Jeremy can make progress. And you say, oh my gosh, we can't do that with every kid. Exactly. So you do it with one person one day and another person another day, and you weave it into the life. That's what it means by normalizing. How can we normalize this in our society? Well, don't make a big deal out of it. Just put it in as a thread in the garment of the society at large, and allow that thread to get settled in there so that it's just recurrent. And now we're thinking about these things. Oh, we're going to do this. We might do this every day, or we might do this every week. And it brings the language of these things into people's minds. And then later at the water cooler or with the kids or at lunch, and particularly if you make it into a contest. But it can't be a contest that you become a loser in, because everybody's already got enough experience of how they're either judging themselves as a loser or having been judged by someone else as someone that's, you know, just never going to get it. So we're not going there. We're not going there, because this is a fail-safe system. Every wrong choice becomes a learning, and we leverage ourselves. And I love what the principal said about, my strong point is self-awareness. Wow. That's like, if I were to give a grade to everything on this circle, I would say that self-awareness is going to be the least common skill that people have, because it really requires that you recognize the relationship between your habituated self, which is just, you know, rare, and your conscious self. That's very powerful. Anyway, so kudos to the principal, and off we go. Back to you, Erica.
That was good. As he was talking, as Dr. Yonke was discussing that, I pulled up a little snapshot of what the blueprint for success looks like. And as we kind of phase out this training session, I will send you this document, and what it provides is the chance for you in your personal journey through this to pick out one of those focus areas. And you'll see that it's designed in a way that Dr. Yonke said very eloquently. It's never about the negative connotations, the negative self lingo that we might put into our mind. We're only using this as a fail-proof system. The words that are used are all meant to inspire you and to spark interest in your own health journey. And I think that that's what's really cool about this. We'll dive into this more, but this is just like a sneak peek at it, and I'll send that after. As in closing, I'm going to pull up my agenda here to provide us maybe all with a chance. Is there anything before that anyone would like to say? Did anything spark a comment or spark a thought or excitement, hopefully? And if not, that's okay. I just am curious. Dennis has something.
I think it's really important to share that none of the ambassadors here today are expected to be experts. And when I first started the coaching program, I felt like, how could I be a coach if I didn't nail all of these areas of my life? And that was a wrong perception on my part. We are human beings. We have strengths and we have weaknesses. We don't call them weaknesses in our program. We have areas of opportunity. We have things that we need to spend more time on, attention to. And I just think it's important that that we're all in this together. And I think with children that, hey, I know that they look up to you. I mean, I think being a teacher is one of the most precious, important occupations around. I mean, I can think of the teachers in my life. I mean, they just pop up in my head as I'm thinking of the impact that certain teachers have made on my life, and you get that opportunity every day. But we're not perfect. And I think it's important for people to know, we're not perfect. I make mistakes just like you do. And not get too hung up on being the expert.
Great, great thought in closing. I could not have said that any better. I think every time I look at that circle and I look through and I think through that, it's okay not to be the expert. I kind of like have a better feeling about the process, and it makes me feel more capable and willing to find that focus area or find and just relish in the strength that I have. So I think that's just a really good way to put it. In closing, I'll just remind you that we're going to hit 2 of the next elements on rest, which some of you are experts, seem like you have that down much better than I do probably, and movement, which some of you also said was a strength. So there'll be more opportunities for that dialogue since we don't have to go through the introductions. That'll give us more chance to get into the really fun part, which is actually hearing from you guys too. That's what makes this process so cool. And so I just remember that process when I was on your guys' end and how meaningful that left me feeling and how that actually changed my life. And so in closing, I hope that this gave you some inspiration. I hope you're as excited as I am to be part of something so much bigger than just another training, because I know how that feels. This is so much more, and be on the lookout for that that house of materials that I'll send you. I'm just going to have to experiment a little bit more on how to house those and get those to you so that you can see them and use them both personally and professionally. So I can't think of anything. Aaron, is there anything else left?
No, I don't, not from my end. I think
Okay.
Dennis, Dr. Yankee have handled it all, so appreciate your
Yes.
time today. I know that the school day is drawing to a close soon in each of our districts, so want to be cognizant of the time, and this is just about perfect.
It was perfect. You all are awesome. I will let you all go, and we will meet again via email in the future, and then we'll meet via Zoom on Thursday the 15th from 1 to 3 and through that Zoom link that Aaron set us up with. So thank you, everyone. Have a good rest
Bye,
of your
everybody.
day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dr. Yankee.
Okay.
Bye-bye now.